Hi, this is Marissa, and I'm doing my presentation on supply side versus demand side economics. So to start out with supply side economics, this is more commonly known as trickle down or in some cases voodoo economics. And the way that it works is that tax breaks are going to be given to owners of large companies and corporations, CEOs, kind of like the Jeff Bezoses of the country. And what's supposed to happen is that they will then use the money that they're given with these tax cuts to create new jobs. And the tax breaks will also help keep them afloat, and essentially, this money will trickle down to the lower and working classes. This is a theory that's typically supported by Republicans, and a lot of people mostly know it as it ties to President Reagan's administration. And the way that it works through the invisible hand theory and what we just learned in class is that the supply will increase. There's supposed to be a line there, not sure where it went, but the supply is going to increase and lower the price. However, as this wealth does trickle down, the demand will increase as well, since people now have more money and the price will go back to its equilibrium. And if you want to hear some more about it, this is just a little video from one of my favorite movies. That's kind of not really an explanation, but it's in there, so I just thought I'd include that. And on the flip side, we have demand side economics, which is also known as trickle up economics, or from what we learned in class, Keynesian economics. And the way that this system works is that tax cuts are going to be given to the lower working classes, the middle class. And now that they're able to keep more money from these tax cuts, they go out and spend more, therefore letting the money trickle up to the wealthy and stimulate that economic growth. This system is usually tied to Democrats, and it was most recently used by President Obama during the 2008 recession, but I'll touch on that a bit more later. So looking at this through a microeconomic standpoint as well, through the invisible hand theory, demand will increase because of these tax cuts, and as this money trickles up to the wealthy will be able to increase the supply of these products and bring the price back to equilibrium. So these two theories are pretty much just the opposites of each other, and both have been used a lot in history to try and get us out of recessions, depressions. So one time that supply side economics was a success was in 2001. It was used by President George Bush during the 2001 recession, and he was able to cut income taxes for the wealthy through the Economic Growth and Tax Relief Reconciliation Act. And because of that, the recession ended by November 2001, which is a really quick recovery. So it was pretty impressive. However, on the flip side, it was used by Reagan to try and end the 1980 recession. And this is kind of considered a failure because it wasn't actually the reason for the recovery of the recession. The government spending that year went up 2.5%, and it actually ended up harming our country because Reagan at that same time tripled the national debt because of defense spending for the Cold War. On the other side, if you look at a success for demand side economics, as we kind of talked about in class, the post-Great Depression recovery, John Keynes worked with Franklin Roosevelt to implement this theory right after the Great Depression. It was pretty much successful. I mean, it was able to pull us out of the biggest depression in history. That's no small feat for a system like this. However, on the other side, and this is kind of a complicated one, a lot of Republican senators and representatives believe that President Obama's recovery plan for the 2008 recession that I mentioned earlier actually failed because, according to them, it was too small and it didn't create enough jobs. And it definitely could have been bigger and more carefully constructed, but unfortunately, he tried to get us out of a recession as fast as possible, so it didn't grow. And there was a lot of pushback by Congress, so there really just wasn't enough time. It didn't do as much as it could have. I hope that this presentation was able to give everyone an overview and some information on these two different theories of economics. They're very widely debated among economists, and they both have their positives, their negatives, and it's a really interesting topic. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for listening.